everyone, welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 3rd of February 2024। तो आज के इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल वन बाय वन देखते हैं हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर से। चंपाई सोरेन sworn in as 12th CM of Jharkhand, population priorities, exposing India's financial market to vultures, two states center likely to foot bill for PM rooftop solar scheme, India will replace its military personnel by May 10। फर्स्ट आर्टिकल है चंपाई सोरेन sworn in as 12th CM of झारखंड। झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा लीडर चंपाई सोरेन took oath as the 12th chief minister of Jharkhand and on Friday, even as his predecessors Hemant Soren was remanded to 5 days in the custody of Enforcement Directorate। राष्ट्रीय जनता दल RJD MLA Satyanand Bhukta and Congress MLA Alamgir Alam also took oath as cabinet minister in a swearing-in ceremony that came 2 days after Mr. Hemant Soren's resignation and arrest in all alleged land scam cases. Soon after the ceremony, 39 MLA of the ruling coalitions who had been staying in the Ranchi Circuit House were rushed straight to the airport and flown to Hyderabad by chartered plane in a bid to prevent them from being posed by the opposition before the new government seeks a vote of confidence on February 5. The JMM-led alliance has submitted letter to support from 47 MLAs to the Raj Bhavan before boarding the charter flight. Several MLAs said that they were going to Hyderabad due to fear of harassment by the ED and the Central Bureau of Investigations. The MLAs were met in Hyderabad by Telangana Congress leader Deepadas Munshi and Poonam Prabhakar and taken straight from the airport to the Leonina resort in Samirpet on the outskirts of the city. The MLA are likely to spread put in the resort till Monday morning. Earlier, after taking his oath, Mr. Champai Saran said that he would continue the former CM's work to strengthen tribal rights under the leadership of Hemant Soren. The state developed a lot. He raised the voice of the tribal and tried his level best to resolve their problems. We will work on every sector, be it health, education, and agriculture, law and order, keeping public interest in mind, the new CM said. Mr. Champai Saran also held his first cabinet meeting at which it was decided to convene a special 2-day session of Jharkhand Assembly from February 5, remanded to ED custody earlier in the day. A special Prevention of Money Laundering Act court granted to the ED a 5 days remand of Mr. Hemant Soren, who was arrested in the connection with money laundering case linked to an alleged land scam. The Supreme Court has refused to entertain his plea against his arrest and asked him to approach the High Court. The former CM has resigned on Wednesday after the ED official held him for over 7 hours of questioning for the second time at his official residence. After his resignation, senior JMM leader and Transport Minister Champai Soren was elected as the leader of the Legislative Party, a 5-time MLA from Saraikala, and Mr. Champai Soren earned the nickname of Jharkhand Tiger while playing an active role in the movement of Jharkhand's statehood in 1990s alongside JMM Patriarch Shibu Soren. Before taking oath, the new CM went to meet the Patil chief, who is also Hemant Soren's father, and sought his blessings. Remote control CM. BJP leader and Ranchi MLA CP Singh mocked Mr. Champai Soren, alleging that he would become a remote control chief minister. It is true that Champai Soren is a senior and close to Shibu Soren's family, so it is obvious that he will operate through a remote control and the remote would be in the possession of Soren's family. He will not be allowed to take any decision on his own. He will just follow the instructions of the Soren's family. Congress and RJD are there and they will blackmail him. look, loot will increase ahead of the assembly election in Jharkhand because little time is left. Mr. Singh alleged the Jharkhand BJP held its legislative party meeting at party headquarters in Ranchi to discuss the present political situation in the state. And next article है population priority. In what was an intriguing statement in her interim budget speech, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the high-powered committee will be constituted to consider the challenges arising from fast population growth and demographic changes, with the Union government repeatedly postponing the decennial census. It has not been conducted for the first time in a decade since 1881. There is no direct evidence to support this statement. It is the evident that India is now the most populous country, but the sample registration system statistics report in 2020 and the National Family Health Survey 5 1921 have shown that the total fertility rate TFR in India has fallen to 2 overall, with only a few states Bihar 2.98, Meghalaya 2.91, Uttar Pradesh 2.35, Jharkhand 2.26 and Manipur 2.17 having a TFR about 2.1. Clearly, the high population growth of the kind seen in the 20th century has been largely arrested in the TFR fell from 5.7 in 1950 to 2 in 2020, albeit differentially across religions. Population share of the southern states reduced to 21% in 2011 and from 26% in 1951, largely a consequence of a rapid reduction in TFI due to better socioeconomic outcomes and education. Despite higher migration to the states, while surveys mentioned are robust and necessary, there are no substitute for the comprehensive census. The continued delay in its implementation reflects poorly on the Union Home Ministry, that is motivated by other priorities rather than executing a vital program of Indian governance. The demographic shift in India and rising life expectancy have resulted in challenges and opportunities. The most touted demographic dividend, the relatively high proportion of working age population in the developing world, is meaningful only if there are sufficient jobs and if they enjoy some degree of social security that will help them when they age. With high unemployment and creation of non-farm jobs, which will increase productivity and cater to skilled employment relatively slack in the last few years, there is possibility of country squandeering this dividend. The high-powered committee will be performing a crucial role if it engages meaningfully in addressing questions related to the jobs and social security and challenges its citizens faces due to rapid urbanization and mechanism of work. However, if the committee focuses on the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party's pet bogies of looking at population issues through the lens of religion and immigration, it will only distract governors from making use of the fast eroding democratic dividend in the country. The next article exposing India's financial market to the vultures. In September 2023, JP Morgan unveiled its plan to include Indian local currency government bonds (LCGBs) in its government bond index. Emerging market GBI EM global index suit set to become effective from June 2024. This announcement highlighted expectations across the Indian financial landscape, prompting anticipations from other influential index providers such as Bloomberg, Barclay, and FTSE Russell. About 4 months later, on January 8, 24, Bloomberg Index Services mirrored JP Morgan's move by proposing the addition of India's fully accessible route FAR bond to Bloomberg Emerging Market Local Currency Index is set to take effective in September 24. The spotlight now turns to FTSE Russell, which in the wake of JP Morgan's revelations declared India's retention on its watch list for the potential upgrade of enhancing the call for reforms in the government bond market anticipated by global investors, a process that began in 2019. India commenced the process of incorporating its government bond into global indices in 2019 as a part of this initiative. By 2020, a segment of government bonds became officially accessible to foreign investors without constraint thanks to the introduction of the FAR. Despite encountering delays linked to the government's stance on capital gains tax and local settlement, the fundamental policy remained unaltered. While negotiations are expected to continue, the recent moves by JP Morgan and Bloomberg indicate a potential inclusion of the Indian LS government and corporate bonds in more benchmark indices. In October 2020, a report by the Interdepartmental Group (IDG) of the Reserve Bank of India detailed efforts to internationalize the rupee, particularly by integrating Indian LCGB into global indices. The document outlines various benefits, including diminishing dependence of public finance on domestic institutions thanks to access to large international resources and greater stability of funds tracking indices compared to other portfolio inflows, while recognizing potential risks such as highlighted sensitivity of domestic monetary and financial conditions and policies to external factors. To the report asserts that the perceived benefit outweighs the risk. Several observers have also pointed out that the opening local bond market would facilitate the financial of a current account and fiscal deficit by engaging institutional investors with long-term investment horizons. Furthermore, it is argued that the cost of public borrowing would decline as in the influx of funds into LCGBs lower domestic interest rate. It was also expected that these funds institutions holding LCGBs, thereby increasing lending and private investigation. A key benefit of opening local bond market to the foreign investors emphasized by the mainstream relates to the so-called origin sin problem, borrow internationally in their own currencies, unlike local currency debt. External debt denominated in the reserve currency exposes debitor to the exchange rate risk. In times of the sharp currency declines, this exposure could result in widespread private insolvencies and a large public deficit, as seen in various instances of crisis in Asia, Latin America, elsewhere. By opening bonds market borrowings in the local currency, the exchange rate risk is passed onto international lender. However, this does not come for free. It needs to be compensated. Furthermore, since these bonds are generally subject to domestic jurisdictions, lender also face an additional default risk. This also needs to be compensated. Thus, local currency bonds need to offer higher returns than forex bonds issued under the foreign jurisdictions in higher interest rate or capital gains. Indeed, even when large international investment in the local bonds of emerging economies made after the global crisis in 2008 helped reduce the local interest rate, the bond index in local currency terms outperformed in the index in US dollars thanks to large capital gains from currency appreciations, loss of autonomy, greater risk. The internationalization of bond markets in emerging economies also entails a significant loss of autonomy in controlling long-term rates and exposes them to greater interest rate risk. When Global risk appetite and liquidity conditions deteriorate and access to international capital market is impaired. Domestic bond market too can get crippled due to the adverse spillovers. This was seen after the Lehman's collapse in September 2008 and when the US Federal Reserve revealed into its intention to start reducing its bond purchase in May 2013. Again, after the recent normalization of monetary policy in the US, local bond rates in the emerging economies are also sort of and continued moving with shift in investors' assessment of the possible course of a policy stance of the Federal Reserve. There is a misconception among proponents that foreign portfolio inflows into the local currency bond markets (LCBM) provide stable and long-term funding, unlike sovereign bonds of the main reserve currency countries such as the U.S. Treasury's local currency sovereign debt of emerging economies is not held by central banks as international reserves but fickle investors, primarily from money managers from advanced economies holding liabilities in their home currencies. As the adage suggests, everyone is a long-term investor until they recognize the impending end. When apprehensions emerges regarding short-term capital losses, be it due to rising interest rates, local currency depreciations, or combination of both. Stability trend tends to dissipate swiftly with the moving to floating and increased exchange rate volatility. Local currency bond inflows to emerging economies have become increasingly volatile because of the exchange rate risk borne by investors. There are significant variations over time in the share of foreigners in local bond markets, and several instances of sudden stops to and exists in Malaysia during 2014-15. The rapid exit of investors from local currency assets, including bonds, resulted in large reserve losses and sharp the declines in the ringgit, push it to the below levels seen during the Asian crisis that in Turkey where macroeconomic imbalances were much more serious. Foreigners totally left the bond market after spring 2018 and reserve losses and currency decline were aggravated and unhedged local forex debaters joined in to avoid exchange rate losses. In times of market distress, external debt in local currency plays a greater role in the drain of reserve and currency declines than for forex debt because of the investor exchange rate risk. So next article है two states. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron remarks that the United Kingdom is considering recognizing the Palestinian state signals a change in the thinking of at least a section of the British government towards the Palestine question after the Israel-Hamas war. After war of October 7, the comment triggered criticism within Conservative Party circles, with Downing Street stating later that the British government policy towards the issue had not changed, yet the debate, which included reports in the American media that the State Department is reviewing options for possible recognitions of a Palestine state, suggest that the Palestine question is back at the center of political parley of the major powers. Before October 7, Israel, its Arab partners and Western allies thought they could ignore the Palestine question and go ahead building a new West Asia. Hamas attacks and the subsequent Israeli invasion of Gaza shows that finding a solution to Palestine question is an imperative for peace and stability in a strife-stricken West Asia and one of the globally recognized and practical pathways to peace is a two-state solution. A viable, independent, sovereign Palestinian state created with the international recognitions. Britain has a historical responsibility to push for a solution. The British government was the first major power to that recognized the Zionist claim to the land of Ottoman Palestine in 1917. During the First World War, the British government issued a Balfour Declaration supporting the creation of a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. The declaration gave a major boost to Zionist movement, promoting Jewish migration from Europe and the building of settlement communities in the history of historical Palestine, Ottoman and British culminating in the creation of Israel in 1948. At least from the Oslo process of the early 1990s, there were multiple diplomatic attempts in finding the mutually acceptable two-state solution, but which were futile as Palestine remained under the occupation. Today, there are roughly 7 lakh Jewish settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and Gaza is being destroyed by Israel. Israel leader, including Benjamin Netanyahu, have repeatedly rejected the two-state solutions while the far-right settlers are pushing for control of the whole Palestinian territory. This is an unstable scenario producing cycles of violence and instability. The two-state proposal is already on its deathbed given the mushrooming of settlement, growing violence and the rise of far-right extremists in Israel and Islamist militants in Palestinian territories. If the British government realizes its historical responsibility, does a reality check of its currency policy and become ready to offer a political horizon to the Palestinians, it would be a welcoming step. So friends, this is all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new news articles from the Hindu newspaper which are relevant from UPSC point of view. So thanks a lot for watching and keep studying. Have a good day.